Hey, so I hear a lot of confusion on how much it costs to buy a house. So I'm actually gonna break it all down for you, and I'm gonna tell you how much it actually costs to buy a house in the Bay Area. So stay tuned. Hey, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Cesar Yanez and I'm your real estate authority here in Silicon Valley and on YouTube. And today I want to tell you how much it actually costs to buy a house in the Bay Area. I hear a lot of misconceptions. People think you have to pay a lot of money or very little money. It's just all over the place. So I thought I'd break it down for you, and I'm going to break it down for you in two ways. I'm going to tell you all the fixed costs involved in the home process, as well as the variable costs in the home process. So I'm going to tell you about the home inspection, home appraisal, the earnest money deposit, the down payment, and the closing costs. So let's get right to it. All right. So let's begin with the first variable cost, and that is the home inspection. Now, this is something that you should get no matter what, especially here in the Bay Area. If you're paying north of $1 million for a home, you better make sure that everything is working and there's no concerns with the house, right? So a home inspection will be recommended. Your realtor better recommend a home inspection. If he doesn't, fire him unless you're super sure you want to risk all that money. But a home inspector will go out and revise the property. They'll make sure that everything is working, and they will tell you about any underlying things that are wrong with the house. Now, typically, I'll give you from my experience, typically a home inspection costs between $500 and $750. And because I want to be very transparent, I'm going to go with the aggressive number every time, which is the most expensive number. So let's just say a home inspection costs $750. Now, this usually vary in cost depending on the size of the house and how thorough the job is. With my clients, I usually recommend 3 different vendors, and I let my client choose. And they have different things that they do that the others don't. So whether you want a more thorough job or something more simple, that will vary in the cost as well. But you could use your own home inspector also if you would like. You don't have to use the one that your realtor recommends. Usually the ones I recommend, or the ones we recommend, is because we've worked with them in the past and they do a good job for our clients. So that's it. I recommend typically 3. But it's usually around $750. All right, so the second fixed cost in the home purchase process is the appraisal. Now, this is typically ordered by the lender, even though you still have to pay for it. And this is that the lender sends out an appraiser to go and determine the value of the house you're purchasing. And pretty much is to make sure that they're actually lending you what the house is worth, right? So if you're buying $1 million home, they want to make sure that the house is actually worth $1 million, so they don't over lend you money and it's less risk for them. And typically, either the appraisal appraises, or it says yes, the house is worth this much money, or it comes under. If it comes under, then you either have to pay the difference, negotiate with the seller, try to find another middle point to meet, or you just have to move on to another house and find something that does appraise. And that typically runs between $300 and $400. Obviously, because I'm going aggressive here, let's use the $400 figure. All right, so on to the variable costs. I want to begin with the earnest money deposit. Now, this is the deposit you make once you submit an offer and it's gotten accepted. And it's you showing that you're willing to put some skin in the game to purchase that house. You're letting the seller know that you're a serious buyer, and you're willing to risk a little bit of money to secure that house. So typically, from my experience, it's between 1% and 3%. Depending on how serious you are. If you really want the house, you may go up to 3% or a little higher. It all depends. That's why it's variable, but it's usually between 1% and 3%. So if we're thinking about buying $1 million home in the Bay Area and Silicon Valley, 1% would be $10,000, 3% would be $30,000. So anywhere between that range. And I forgot to mention, this eventually becomes part of your down payment. So if you're gonna make a 10% down payment, which is $100,000 in $1 million home, and you did a 3% earnest money deposit, you subtract that, right? So you would only pay $70,000 for your 10% down payment because you had already put 3%, $30,000 as your Earnest money deposit. So it combines. So the second variable cost I want to go through is the closing costs. Now, there's a lot of different costs involved in this. Fees. It's typically taxes, transfer fees, title fees, the loan fees, and a bunch of other escrow fees and more fun stuff. But this typically varies by city, and depending on the city, some items are paid by the seller and some items are paid by the buyer. So I'm gonna give you an example of what it would be in Sunnyvale with a 10% down payment and a 20% down payment. So let's check it out. Cool. Now that you've seen the different costs associated with the closing costs, it's pretty easy to break it down. And let's just go with the top number, 20%. I'll give you both scenarios. Why not? I'll give you the 20% total, grand total, and the 10% grand total. All right, so moving on to our third variable cost, the down payment. Now, there's different down payment options throughout California and throughout the country, but because we live in such an expensive area in the Bay Area and Silicon Valley, we usually don't see a lot of these down payment assistance or FHA programs. So the 0% down payment and the 3.5% down payment are out of the question for my example for this video. They're not impossible. You do see them sometimes, but not very often. So I'm gonna go with a 10% down payment option and a 20% down payment option in our grand total. So if we were buying a $1 million home in Silicon Valley, 10% down payment of that would be 100 grand, and the 20% down payment of that would be 200 grand. So now that you know all the fixed and variable costs involved in the process, let's add them up to the grand total. So for the 20% down payment, we're gonna add up the $700 for the home inspection, $400 for the home appraisal. Now, we're not gonna add the earnest money deposit of 3%, the 30 grand, because that's just gonna be in our down payment anyways. But I am gonna add the closing costs for the 20% down payment, which was $7,410. And lastly, our down payment, $200,000. And our grand total of what it actually costs to buy a house in Silicon Valley for 20% down payment is $208,510. Now, our second option with a 10% down payment, we're gonna add up the $700 home inspection, the $400 home appraisal. Again, our earnest money deposit's already included in our down payment, but you do have to pay that before you pay the whole down payment. Our closing costs are a little bit more with a 10% down payment. They're $7,496. And lastly, our 10% down payment, 100 grand, which brings our grand total to $108,596. And that is it. I hope you found this information helpful. That's what it actually costs to buy a house. Now, there may be more miscellaneous fees involved in the home purchase. Sometimes during the home inspection period, you may want to get other contractors to do a more thorough job if you need to check the roof or the piping or the electrical problems. That may cost you a little more. Sometimes if you pay cash, the closing costs are not involved, so also that makes it variable, and then you have less closing costs. So, but typically 10%, 20%, that's the breakdown. Again, I hope you find this information helpful. Let me know if you have any questions about the process, about the closing costs, about the actual cost, if you want me to do a breakdown for you. But again, just let me know if there's anything I can do for you, whether it's now or in the future. And thank you for watching as always. Peace. Give me